All right, hello. This is a sad day, actually. This is our last video for the semester. And I mean, it's been a fun time, and I hope everybody's enjoyed it. I didn't mean to make it sad immediately, but it kind of just hit me that this is our last time together. Well, not together, but hopefully that makes sense. But that's hmm, sad. But I am looking forward to seeing what you guys make or what you all make next semester. Um, as you guys are going to be expected, there's going to be big things. Obviously, as you can see, I extracted the file. I started up, everything. My computer's a little slower right now. I am currently downloading something that I need to have downloaded very soon. Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Wait, what happened? It's right here. What? What do you mean? What do you mean you couldn't find it? Well, that download's getting paused because that's unbearable while I'm recording. Okay, but like, well, this is a good chance to why is it looking inside the zip? All right. Well, so this is a good chance to show everyone how to fix this issue. So what we do is we press remove when it's searching for the wrong. Don't know why it's telling me I need Git. I don't have Git on here in this project. So we add, you press right click, add existing project. You click on, no, not that. No, none of these. Tutorials, Essential Math 7 Starter. Right here. Let's just go back a second. Interesting that it's looking for Tutorial Starter, Essential Math Starter. Weird that it's looking for, never mind, okay, but now it's loaded properly. So what we did was we went in here, we pressed add existing project, and we went into the folder where our solution is. So this is the folder where our solution is. So we go one folder down and you find the VCX project. And it's already a member of the solution, so it won't let you add it a second time. But the first thing that we want to do is, so there have been a few changes for this iteration of the framework. A few. So number one, Scene got this. Scene got a brand new member called GUI. Does nothing right now. Where else? Games GUI now calls the individual scene GUI, as well as it uses dock space over viewport instead. If you go into tutorials, if you go into the starter version, actually, where is it? The includes. IMGUI include is actually smaller and it has different files now. So what you are going to need to do is actually you won't need to do. Well, so if you want to import this version of the framework into something you've already been working on, what I recommend, what you have to do is, so right click. So here, I'm going to delete this and I'm going to show you what happens. So when you don't have that, so all I've done is created a thing in the, what's it called? Resource folder, or the resource files. So you have header files, you have source files, and then you have resource files. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new filter, and you'll see later on. Here, we'll just open up Physics Playground and physicsplayground.cpp while we're doing that. Currently I have Sepia and Vignette on the screen. I'm going to pin that. I'm just going to leave all the files that I made edits in pinned. So game.scene.h. Oh yeah, but if you'll see, there are a lot of linker errors. And so what you need to do is go into resource files, and I'm going to walk you all through this. So IMGUI, and we're going to go in here, add existing item, include IMGUI, and then right here, add. And now all the files will be here. One thing to mention as well, one very important thing, ignore that. So game.cpp is getting pinned because I made changes to GUI, as well as I made changes to backend. That's no longer needed. You can remove that if you want. It's not actually going to cause issues. Not anymore. As well as, I don't believe this is necessary, but leave it in. It is useful, I believe. Helpful. It allows you to use more modifiers, I believe. This is for key mapping. But this has been put here. It's been put here. This was put here, and these don't run anymore. These will never run anymore. But if you, so right now there's a trade-off, but if you really want all that stuff still, don't edit this file. Please don't edit that file. Yeah, no, these don't work anymore. Yeah. I'll push out a fix for these within the next little bit. Within, obviously the next few days. But basically, what's happening is if we go into IMGUI implementation here, you'll notice that IMGUI implementation is actually grabbing these what's it called? These events before I can. Or sorry. No, wait. No, they all still work. Ignore everything I just said. I'm not thinking straight. They all still work. So what's happening is what I've done here is I've made it so this is an event. So I'm passing the event in here. It's using the stuff and returning false when it's done. And then it's going into this one. So technically we're processing like mouse input here, and then we're giving IMGUI all the mouse input in here, as well as the key input, as well as everything else. But that's all. That is all the changes in here. Backend.h just had that one file. Playground.cpp, physicsplayground.cpp got a makeover. Not in the literal sense. You'll see what I mean. But yes, do not forget to go in if you're going to move these to another file. Go in and add all of these IMGUI files, all of them, because you notice how we have 165 errors when we remove them. Oh wait, no wait. Build, cancel. I gotta also clean. So what you'll notice is because you remember how we had to right-click, add, or sorry, right-click, add existing project. You know how we'd had to do that. Well, what that did is it reset this. So change this to times 64, and debugger release. Doesn't really matter. Release is technically faster, but release doesn't have any debug options. Yeah. And that's pretty much all the changes, I believe. If there are any that I missed that anyone finds or has issues with when they try to port the data over, any that I didn't mention specifically, please make sure to mention. Oh, I remember there is one last one. Go into Effect Manager. I commented out grain because grain was broken. So is pixelate. And then what you want to do is you want to go into Effect Manager .cpp, and you go in here and you find the one that's broken right now. Where's pixelate? There's pixelate. Yep. If I remember correctly, pixelate wasn't letting us full screen, which is an issue. And I'm going to be looking into those issues, and obviously they can come back when they're not an issue anymore, but right now they are an issue. So Effect Manager and Effect Manager.cpp are getting pinned. Then Playground.cpp. And that's all, other than I created 3 new functions in Playground.h, Physics Playground. And all they do is, you'll see. Point is that it has a GUI override now, and it calls these. I created 2 new booleans. File input was used but was removed, but you can keep it. You can use it if you can find a use for it. Now there's a lot more code to mess around with, so that's gonna be fun. I'm gonna try and just minimize everything, make it as readable as possible, just for now, and then we're gonna maximize them as we go through them, because we're gonna go through them. So yeah, let's run this. This is going to be a short video, probably as little as half an hour. There's really, it's not like a whole bunch of stuff. I may write like a teensy bit of code, just a teensy bit. And all that will do is I'm going to show you guys how to create to do some fun things just real quick, and use some of the stuff that I have not talked about. So as you can see, currently we have sepia and this, but nothing's really changed. I just added some color and some effects. First big change is I made it so that when you scale a body, it'll actually check if said body has a sprite attached to it. If the entity that has the body has a sprite on it, if it has a sprite, it'll automatically resize the sprite for you. That is one of the biggest things. That is actually one of the things I forgot to mention. I did this a few days ago. It was just in physics. Physicsbody.cpp, I believe, in scale body. It's some advanced well, more advanced entity code. So what it does is I get the registry, and then I use try get. And what try get does is it tries to get a sprite from this entity. It won't crash if this doesn't have that. And if it returns a null pointer, I just don't run this code. And then if it doesn't, I run this code and set the width and height of the sprite to the width and height of the body. And that's all. Highly recommend tryget. I will probably end up implementing it into ECS over the next few months, hopefully. I'm aiming to actually continue to hopefully give you all updates, because I'm still learning about entity as I'm making these things. I'm still learning about how to use it. I only recently learned how to use tryget, and that's because I've been using it tryget so much in Unity that I figured, hey, entity has to have some sort of implementation for this. Some implementation better than just get and then having it crash. So yeah, that's it's very nice. It's very nice. And I obviously use the user data on the body to get the entity number. And yes, that is all the changes. So you'll notice that it didn't seem like much had changed. You know, why am I recording this at 10:59? I've actually been working on this since 5 in the afternoon. There were a lot of bugs that I had to go through and a lot of bugs that I had to work through and fix with the biggest extra that you will find in the system. This is something that the second years all use as well for their games, so they can actually help in some cases as long as it's not directly related to the framework. They're actually able to give you help, but IMGUI. So what this is I can actually dock this. So the top of this window, side of the window, can dock it into the window, bottom of the window. You know, obviously you can bring it over here. And these actually do different things based on how many windows you have. So, you know, I'm going to bring this back up here. By the way, the button that I pressed to bring it up is F1. F1 enables your stuff. So what you can do is you can actually go up here, press hide tab bar. Now it looks cleaner. So enable first window, disable. And then, so this is a checkbox. This just changes a bool. And this is a oop. Oop. One moment. Interesting. That was weird. That was weird. That, as you can see, that issue is not happening again. But yeah. So this is a thing. This is UI. It uses a thing called Dear IMGUI. You know, it's fully implemented. I wrote all of this UI. And so, as you can see right here, so this displays an image dynamically, so I can actually write in beachball.png. Or what's another thing that's inside the assets sprites folder? What else do we have? We have like button.png, confirm file, or hello world.png. Look at hello world, or hexagon.png, or sprite sheets /link.png. Loads in link sprite sheets. I don't have a thing that allows you to resize this yet, but you could create one. What's this? What? Gravity's changing. Make everything go up. Oh god. There you go. But yeah, these are all things that you can do. Oops, I found that. Here's another thing. I created 2 trees. Remove effect, remove effect. Now, when you're in IMGUI, you can't use A and D. You actually have to click back over here. So you see how this one is highlighted? This one's highlighted. So you can also hide tab bar for all of these. Also notice how it always goes back to the same space. Even though this one adjusts to be in the right spot, it always goes back to how it was before. And then there's a tab. You shouldn't have pressed that. This is a button image. This is a button image. You're within tab 2. This is tab 1. They both render different things. And then here's this one. There's a color wheel. If you right click on it, you can get one of these. If you right click, you can go back. If you actually right click, you can enable the alpha bar, which I believe, oh god. There we go. And if you control click on these, you can set them to a number. So control click. Control click. You can actually just set them to a physical number. You can change this back to link.png. Do not believe that's what it's called. Oh, I spelled standby wrong. And you can click in there. There you go, link standby. You can change the background to anything that you want using this. Alpha doesn't actually do anything on the background color. Disable the alpha bar. Typically like a nice blue. But these are all, this is a button. You can actually change what color it highlights to as well. These are images. You can load them dynamically using text input. There are also, you can do float input. There's also a separate float input. You can also manually switch this. Or you can interact with this. And as you make this smaller, this becomes smaller. They all resize. This doesn't resize like that. None of it. Not a lot of them resize on the Y. You can have things that render on the exact same line. I decided to use a checkbox and a toggle just to show you that what was possible. You can use a button, or you can use a checkbox. Oh, and then because of the way that I set this up, I can just manually apply the vignette effect. Go into properties, which is another window, a nested tree that I added. Bring that down. Bring this down. Now imagine having like a smooth, this is how you leave a level, transition, and then it loads in the new level, and then it starts out like this. Imagine setting that up. Oh, and here's another thing that you can do. So if we go up here, bring this window back, grab it. Yeah. You can toggle the second window still. Doesn't matter where it is. It's completely independent. You can put this window back down here. So if you put it down here, it'll cover the entire thing and force this one to be higher up. So, you know, now that if I enable and then toggle second window, it'll actually go back to where it was. And then, or if I do bottom over here, so I need to bring this back out. Do this. Do this. And this is all testing that you can do. So these are all, so instead of changing all of these numbers manually in your code, you can be changing them in IMGUI. So I can be going in here, changing these properties until I get the effect to look like I want it to. And then, you know, I can apply the sepia effect, change the properties. I can make it like less intense, more intense. Less intense so there's still color. And then this is how I want to play. And now I can just disable the UI, play like this. You know, you don't have to disable the UI. You can actually make it a part of it. You'll notice that it's not as if this becomes a new screen, but if I disable this, the other part of the screen is still there. It's not actually changing size. What this is it's covering a portion of the screen currently. There are certain roundabout ways that I am considering implementing that would allow you to use the screen here. Are those going to get implemented? Only time will tell. It's completely up to how much time I have next semester. This is not a this semester thing. But yes. Also, you can do this. You can. So if we bring this back down here, and then make this one bring back. So we can also take up this entire area and still have like 3 of them. Or we can take up this other side. Still play in the middle. It isn't perfect, obviously, and that's all on IMGUI's side, the fact that this doesn't resize perfectly. But that's honestly okay. This is really good, even as is, if in my opinion at least. But then I can remove the effects, remove the effects. It doesn't actually remember where the settings were. These are the default settings. But I'm sure that's something that you could actually program yourself for it to remember them. But yeah, I figured this would be very useful for all of your second semester games. So I figured I would go out of my way and make sure to implement it, make sure it all works, and show it off. So now we're actually going to go, oh, this is the last thing. You can actually, so if you put it in the center one, it will create tabs. So this is tabs within tabs. This is automatic tabs. So even if I toggle second window, you know, these are both tabbed with each other. If I disable them both, bring them back in reverse order, you know, entirely up to you. I personally really like this effect. I'm not sure why. I just really do. Or I was actually this one was kind of growing on me. Just a little. But yeah, this is really cool. You know, you scroll, don't have to actually click anything. Scroll wheel works, tabs, buttons. You can toggle them both off, toggle them back on. Can even close them, though I wouldn't recommend that if you would like to keep it. If you want to make the UI go away, just, you know, turn it off. But yeah, and you can still play. And now obviously the world is a bit screwy, so it's negative 98.0. That's our typical gravity that we have agreed upon. You can still render your boxes and everything, all this stuff. Ignite actually works like a pretty good flashlight, honestly. It's a pretty like... It's not typically used as a flashlight effect, but it honestly makes for a pretty good one. But yeah. That is that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you, things you can do. So I'm going to show you each of how we set these up. So currently, in order for GUI to render, it has to be called every frame. So what I've done here is I have two bools and do the UI. So when you enable it using F1 initially, it brings up just this, because these both default to false. And then, so we have IMGUI checkbox. So this takes a reference to your first bool. See how it's disabled by default? You click on it and it changes the value. So it changes this to true. So now we're going to look at this stuff. So we're going to look at these. Here, I'm going to do my best to get a half and half. There you go. I remembered. You all have copies of this. This isn't, we're obviously not writing any code yet, but I'm going to zoom in just to make sure everybody can see. So, there's one small thing with writing, with typing stuff. And if you want them to be constant and you want them to constantly come back, and they aren't, if you just want like a random, you want someone to be able to randomly input this, you have to create a character buffer. You have to make it static. Unless you're storing this value somewhere else, it needs to be static. Now, this static won't persist across the entire program. It will only persist within here. It will only exist in here. It's still a local variable. It's just static, which means it doesn't get recreated every frame. As well as what we're creating here is, we have a static bool for initialized. So buffers need to be initialized. Char buffers, and I'm not going to explain. This is actually C. This is a different programming language. This is C. So what I'm doing here is I'm just setting the memory to 0, and that's all. That's all you need to know. I'm not going to explain, memset. But all this does is set the memory to 0. And right here, I have another default image load. It's why it starts out as link standby. It's why the first file that you will see, the first image you will see loaded in is link. From here, we have float gravity. So this is our gravity value. We get the gravity from the physics world every frame because this is stored somewhere else. So we don't have to make this static. This doesn't need to be static. This is stored somewhere else. So we get gravity, and we store that. And we save this as an array. Typically, they want arrays. It asks for arrays, typically not, especially if you're storing this. So you can't actually access like just mphysicsworld.gravity. You can't access the variable. If you could, there's another thing that you can do, but you can't access it. So instead, you settle for, get gravity. This line right here allows for sleeping. This allows the world to sleep. I have this resetting to true every frame because actually in the gravity sector, in this if statement, I am setting it to false so that it wakes up every body in the world and makes them move using the new gravity. Because if a body isn't awake, it won't update. Let's say you have a moving platform and you just set your character still on it. Let's make this a little bigger. You just set your character still on it. Your character isn't going to move with the platform unless your character is marked as awake. Okay, now we can get started on the IMGUI stuff. So this is an IMGUI tree node. A lot of the stuff you will have to like Google around about or ask upper years. Most upper years have actually dealt with IMGUI in some way, shape, or form, actually, because we all touched upon it for some of our classes. But so IMGUI tree node. So almost every IMGUI object returns. If we hover over this, you can't actually see it because we're in play mode. But if I control click, text was a bad example. Text does not. But if you control click on slider float, you'll notice it returns a bool. So this bool is whenever the object is interacted with. So when a tree node is open, it returns true. So when a tree node is closed, it doesn't actually do any of the code in here. When it's closed, none of the code in here runs. So when this is false, when this is closed, none of the code in here runs. But the moment I open it up, it's now running. So what this does, what I've written here, is I've written a check that says, hey, is there a vignette handle? Because this defaults to -1. If there's a vignette object, it's not going to be -1. If there is, okay, create a new tree node. Call it properties. In here, I'm casting the post effect. This returns post effect. Post effect pointer. I'm casting it to a vignette, grabbing the variables, storing them as floats, and then I am using a slider float. And you'll notice slider float returns a bool. So when a slider is interacted with, it returns true. Whenever this value is changed, so if I control click on it and change it to 1, whenever this value is changed, it returns true. So the moment this value changes, we do vig.setInnerRadius and then to the inner radius variable that we've saved, which has been changed by the slider. And then IMGUI slider float, we do it again for the outer radius, set outer radius. And then we do it one last time for the opacity. And one thing that we can actually do here is if we change it to a drag float, and then we add a 1.f here. We can change this to a drag float. And you'll notice, so opacity is this. So opacity shows how opaque this is. So if we close this, rerun it, one thing you'll notice, so if I enable first window, one big thing you'll notice, properties, it doesn't have a slider on it anymore. And its speed is 1. So what we want to do, so that's what this variable is. Oh. So that's what this right here is. So if we hover over drag float, you'll see it goes label, a reference to the value, the speed at which you want it to increase. So if it's 0 to 100, you want it to go at 1, But if it's something that's 0 to 1, you want it to go to 0.01. This is 1% every time. Every like little bit that you drag. So, we've got this again. Enable first window. vignette, properties. You'll notice how it goes down slowly. Goes down by ones now. But it doesn't visibly show it. This one, on the other hand, does show it. I can remove the sepia. But yeah. So this is a drag float. It does the exact same thing, just differently. So after that, what we do is we pop out the tree. Inside the if statement, under every tree node, you need to run tree pop. If we comment this out and attempt to run, it's going to be fine. It's going to run. It's going to run. But the moment we try to open up this, enable that window, and try to open up vignette, try to open up properties, so what is it going to tell us? Tree node tree pop mismatch. Oh, I forgot to add back the... There we go. So you need to have a tree pop in there. That's another thing. For each new window that you create, and you'll see it right here, begin, and there needs to be an end. The GUI window, begin, end. This is the name of the window. So if I open up this, you'll notice that it's called test. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. You know, we can hide tab bar. But yeah, so now we can go back to putting this back to as intense as it was. But yeah, so as you can see, this and this. And then we have the remove effect button. So you'll notice buttons also return a bool. So we have if button. So if button click down a button, remove effect, apply effect. And you'll notice right here, if the vignette handle, doesn't return -1, then it does this. If not, if there is no effect, if it returns -1, then the button becomes apply effect. And then it creates the effect. And then you can obviously start changing all the variables again. And then because this is this, so there's a tree node here. So we have to have a tree pop here. And yeah, so that's how the vignette effect works. And so this is another example that I wrote. So tree pop, tree pop, tree node, tree pop. This does the same thing, just only has one variable. Sepia doesn't have a lot of variables. You can change the intensity. That's all you can really do with sepia. So we're gonna remove it. And that's it for that. So now there's an IMGUI separator. You see this line right here? This right here is an IMGUI separator. And then I created a title, editing world variables, so title, text, and now IMGUI slider float. So you remember that array that we added in. Also, this video is going to turn out a lot longer than I thought it was, but I should make sure to explain these things because it's important. So remember this array right here. So we're storing gravity. So whenever this one gets triggered, whenever we change something, world gravity, we then set the gravity by creating a new B2 vec2, grabbing the values out from the array, so 0 and 1, because this array is only too large, that's why we use the slider float 2. We set allow sleeping false to wake up all of the variables whenever this is interacted with. This forcibly wakes up everything in the world. And then obviously next frame, instantly everything is allowed to go back to sleep if it needs to go back to sleep. Because sleeping is good. Don't disable sleeping fully. Never disable it fully. Only disable it for a moment. Sleeping is important. it saves memory and saves on CPU processing. It makes your game faster. And that's all that you have to do here. So up here, we created init. If not init, this is only going to be not the first time this is ever run. The first time. What it does is it creates the buffer, mem sets the buffer to 0, and then sets init to true. So init is now true the moment we've started. So our buffer is empty. So what we do here is we can just start typing. We could do control backspace, it'll delete it all. We can select an individual and replace it. We can select it all. Oh. Don't know what that was. I think I pressed one of the function buttons, which instantly triggers a breakpoint. There's one of the F keys actually instantly triggers a breakpoint. But if you press confirm file and it's not a valid file, you'll just get a black screen. You won't get an error. It's not how file loading works. But so what we've created here is we've created a buffer that allows you to input. And so if we go down here, so displaying images dynamically. So input text, input file name for text. So this doesn't allow for spaces. I can press space all I want, no spaces. And what we create here is a button, name it. Now this is the size. I didn't mention it up here, but this is the size of the button. This is actually a pretty typical button. I use this for a lot of. This size is a pretty good size. So what we're going to do here, in here, so if you click the button, what it does is it sets the image load, which is also a static variable, the string image load, to buffer. And so in order to load, and then we load an image. So IMGUI image. And so what you need to do here is void pointer, int pointer t, and then you need to get the image ID. And so you've never actually had to use this right here. But what this function does is it goes in, checks if the file name, if the file name is in here loaded. If it isn't, and by the way, any files that you load in as a sprite is loaded in through this system. So if you're trying to write out a sprite, so you'll notice how link standby.png, it's instant. Beachball.png, it's instant. For the most part, it'll all be instant because they're small files. But if you try to load in a bigger file that wasn't loaded in already, it won't be instant. But yeah, so when you press confirm, it automatically loads it. So what this does is it goes through all the files. There's a list of files loaded, and it tries to find it. If it wasn't listed, it loads it. And this is just a really cool system to allow for that easily. And then you get the ID. So what image asks for is actually the render backend specific version of an image ID. And for us, it's SDL. SDL. SDL? No. I don't remember what the specifics are, but yeah. You can set the size of the image, and then these are the text coordinates. Typically, you would like it to be 0, 1, 1, 0, because when you load in an object, it's funny. When you load in any texture, they're actually upside down. And currently in the sprites, I actually force them to flip. I make them flip. But in IMGUI, I can't specifically make them flip. So what you do is you just pass in UV coordinates that flip the Y. So now the bottom is the top and the top is the bottom. But yeah. And then we have IMGUI separator right here. And then we have an editing color. So color pick 4. And this is what I was talking about, where you can just do a different method. This requires an array of 4. So what this created is it's a vec4, and the vec4 includes 4 objects. They allow you to index using this. And so what you do is if you have any sort of thing like this, like a vector, You can just do and then get the first value in it. And that's it. That's all for this. The second window, it's very much the same as the first. So we have begin. We have begin here. We have our buttons, our button stuff, and then the value that it's going to print. We have a tab bar. Begin tab item, same as the tree node. Begin tab item, end tab item. It has to be within begin and end tab bar, though. Unlike tree nodes, it has a special bar system that you have to enable first. You are within tab 1, and then tab 2, tab 1. You cannot drag out these tabs, though. You cannot drag them out. So what this does is it just creates an image button. It's the exact same as the other one, just asks for, it's a button. So you use an if statement on it, and when you click it, click the red button. You shouldn't have pressed that. And tab item, and then liked and tab item. And that, my friends, is it. Yeah, that's it. One moment, there's going to be a cut. Someone is bugging me real quick. There's going to be a cut, so I shall return in 3, 2,